Dear friends and neighbors, as some of you may be aware, last Thursday, the 21st of January, the UK Department of Education published a Skills for Job white paper that the Department of Education said it wanted to put an end to the illusion that a degree is the only route to success and a good job, and that further and technical education is a second-class option. I welcome this initiative by the UK government as it recognizes the differences between education, learning, and how it affects productivity and success. Many of you would have been familiar with the equation E = mc squared that is synonymous with the Nobel Prize winner Albert Einstein, who is generally considered the most influential physicist of the 20th century. Einstein's theory of relativity, that energy and mass are the same thing, just in a different form, would go on to foreshadow the creation of the atomic bomb and the Global Positioning System, GPS, and serve as one of the two pillars of modern physics. Einstein's understanding of light functioning both as a wave and as a stream of particles became the basis for what is known today as quantum mechanics, the second pillar of modern physics, and responsible for our computer chips, MRI imaging, and laser beams for cancer treatment. However, what most people tend to forget is that Einstein was a high school dropout. Einstein was uncomfortable in school and he did not like the style of teaching. Einstein believed that education was too systematic, like it was designed to program people, and instead supported the concept that education should promote individuality and free thinking. Einstein once said, "Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think." And while Einstein was a high school dropout, he was able to bounce back for two reasons. One, he had supportive parents. And two, he could apply directly to his local community college without the equivalent of a high school diploma if he passed the entrance exams. Einstein passed mathematics and physics with flying colors, but failed at French, chemistry, and biology. But because of his exceptional math scores, the college decided to admit him on the condition that he finish high school. In other words, the college decided to give him a chance. It took me a while to personally appreciate that concept, as I too know what it's like to be a dropout. I dropped out of university after my first year. At 18 years old, I was let loose in New York, and did I party? No, I really partied. I had a blast. I had a great time, and guess what? My grades reflected it too. You see, I approached university the same way I approached high school, and thought that I could study the night before exams, cram, and memorize the subject. After all, it worked for my 5 years of high school. Boy, was I wrong. I don't mean B average wrong or C average wrong. I was D average wrong. I was smart enough to hide those grades from my family, my friends, and even the education council that managed my scholarship. Trust me, had they seen those grades, there is no way I would have been given a second chance. Funny enough, a few years ago, I attended an orientation that was put on by the Education Secretariat for the students that were receiving government scholarships. And I remember a few parents and students complaining about some of the things they had to comply with, especially with the reporting of grades. And I just smiled to myself and thank God those requirements weren't there almost 30 years ago. And while I can talk about it now, and sometimes even laugh about it, it made me realize something. My grades weren't bad because I was partying. My grades were bad because I wasn't motivated. 3 years after dropping out, I was really motivated. The government gave me the opportunity to go back and finish or pay back the money they spent on me. At that time, I was making about $1,200 per month, and I didn't need to be a genius to realize it was cheaper to go back and finish. When I returned to university, it was a different environment. Most of my friends that I started with had graduated or dropped out, and I knew I had a lot to do to catch up. I was determined, I was focused, and when the young kids started calling me elder, I was even more motivated. No more sitting in the back of the class, I was up front. I applied myself differently. I no longer relied on memory. Instead, I focused on understanding the concept and the purpose of what was being taught to me. I actually started to think and realize that obtaining knowledge can actually be fun. I found my love for learning. I found my passion. But I wouldn't have found any of that if I wasn't given a second chance. I was not written off. Today, I find that we are too quick to write off and marginalize not only our students, but people in general. We have made education into a business, and in some cases, made education a tool that separates us based on whether someone has a university degree or not, completely forgetting that education and learning are two different things. Lucky for us, many government and businesses around the world have recognized this, and in some countries, people can convert what they have learned on the job into college credits towards a degree. And whilst this has been happening since 1974, we are now seeing businesses follow suit. Over 5 years ago, the London office of the global accounting firm EY decided not to require new hires to have a college degree, but instead, they chose to evaluate them on a series of pre-employment tests. My point today, which serves as a genesis for our policy initiative number 2, is this. Learning is not a one-size-fits-all approach, and the key is creating opportunities that provide a pathway for lifelong learning for our students and our people. This means not writing off children when they stumble at the first, second, or even third hurdle. Instead, it means providing the support they need to get back on the path, be it in primary, middle, high school, university, or even later in life. Just last year, my dear Aunt Pauline completed her bachelor's degree after she retired from work, something she always wanted to do. But as with most women of her generation, the opportunity wasn't there initially, and then family life took over. I want to touch on one last thing before I end this video, and that is the issue of vocational training. In a previous video, I raised the issue that sometimes the problem is the way we see the problem, and we need to adjust our mindset. Many times I've heard people say that not everyone is academically inclined, and that is why we need vocational schools. Here is some homework. Look up the meaning of the word academic, and after you do that, look at the jobs that are considered vocational. Chances are you'll be very surprised when you realize that medical and dental assistants, registered nurses, chefs, most first responders, and even pilots are considered vocational jobs. And if you really have time, take a look at the Chamber of Commerce salary survey over the years and see which jobs actually pay. Let's face it, after Hurricane Ivan, who did most of us have on speed dial? It wasn't the lawyers or accountants, but instead the builders, the plumbers, AC technicians, and your general maintenance people. Likewise, this global pandemic also demonstrated those overlooked and underpaid jobs are in fact the jobs that kept our economy functioning. Where would we be without Cayman Airways flying in essential goods, or the workers on the port unloading the cargo ships, or supermarket workers ensuring our shelves were stocked, or the police enforcing curfew? Policy number 2 is therefore called the Pathway for Lifelong Learning, a pathway that will ensure that people have the right skills for their job to be properly rewarded and feel fulfilled, feel like their contributions, their productivity actually matters. One final point I want you to also consider. The purpose of education isn't to make you employable. It is to make you trainable. Being trainable is what makes you employable. It was that trainability that our foreparents possessed that made the Cayman Islands what it is today. One love, one Cayman. God bless.